Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham and we're live in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C. And today it's Long Live the King, and President Donald Trump's feud with Ukraine's President Zelensky escalates. We've got the latest on these and other stories from the United States and around the world. But first, here's a look at the day's headlines. Israel receives the bodies of 4 hostages killed by Hamas in Gaza, including the Bibi's family. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls their return a tumultuous day of mourning. China urges the United States not to wield a big stick on tariffs against Beijing after President Donald Trump threatens sweeping trade measures on all adversaries. French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to visit Washington next week as Europe assesses amid President Trump's shift on the war in Ukraine. Foreign ministers from G20 nations meet in Johannesburg, South Africa. However, Secretary of State Marco Rubio skips the meeting amid simmering tensions between Washington and Pretoria. And a passenger train in Sri Lanka derails after ramming into a family of elephants, killing 6 animals in the country's worst such wildlife accident. We begin in the United States, where a war of words has erupted between President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. And taking advantage of the situation is Russian leader Vladimir Putin. After blaming President Zelensky for pushing his country into ruins, Donald Trump on Wednesday called him a dictator. The commander-in-chief accused the Ukrainian leader of not holding elections, which have been postponed indefinitely due to the Russian invasion.
Have elections is low in the real Ukrainian polls. I mean, how can you be high with every city is being demolished? It's hard to be high. Somebody said, oh, no, his polls are good. Give me a break. Every city is being demolished. They look like a demolition site, every single one of them. And the only thing he was really good at was playing Joe Biden like a fiddle. He played him like a fiddle. That's an expression we use, Yasser, to say that he's pretty easy. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast because that war is going in the wrong direction. In the meantime, we're successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia.
And President Trump did not stop there. He also called President Zelensky a comedian who tricked the United States into spending billions of dollars on a war that could not be won.
Modestly successful comedian. President Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won, that never had to start and never would have started if I was president, not even a chance, and it didn't start for 4 years.
These comments were made after Zelensky said President Trump lives in a bubble of Russian disinformation. This after the commander-in-chief asserted that President Zelensky has a 4% approval rating, a claim that is completely false. In fact, a recent poll by the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology shows 57% of Ukrainians trust President Zelensky.
Since we are talking about 4%, we have seen this disinformation. We understand that it is coming from Russia. We understand this, and we have evidence that these numbers are being discussed between America and Russia. That is, unfortunately, President Trump, with great respect for him as a leader of the people, which we respect very much, the American people, who constantly support us, unfortunately, lives in this disinformation space.
And now adding fuel to the fire, Putin suggests that Zelensky's reaction to the recent U.S.-Russia talks was hysterical. Notably, the meeting between American and Russian officials in Saudi Arabia has angered the Ukrainian leader, who is now openly criticizing President Trump's approach. But even Putin has now said that Ukraine will not be excluded from the negotiations.
Well, why get hysterical here? Hysteria is inappropriate. As for the negotiation process, President Trump told me during a telephone conversation, and I can confirm that, of course, the United States assumes that the negotiation process will take place with the participation of both Russia and Ukraine. No one is excluding Ukraine from this process. Therefore, there is no reason for such a reaction to the Russia-US meeting.
And Vladimir Putin has also added that he would like to meet President Trump soon, and also noted that the Ukrainian settlement could take up to half a year. President Trump's latest back and forth with Zelensky, however, and his closeness with Putin have made one thing clear. No matter how much optimism Ukraine voices on the global stage, Russia now holds all the cards at the negotiating table. And staying in the United States, the Trump administration has added 8 drug cartels, including 6 from Mexico, to the list of foreign terrorist organizations. The designation is part of President Donald Trump's plan to wage war on the drug cartels. After the cartels were added to the list, the commander-in-chief vowed to oversee the total elimination of the drug gangs. And according to the State Department, the gangs that have been declared as foreign terrorist organizations include the deadly MS-13, the Sinaloa cartel, the Jalisco cartel, and the Tren de Aragua, among others. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has confirmed that it has in fact deployed the MQ-9 Reaper spy drone to track cartel activity inside Mexico. These drones have already flown several times over Mexico and can be equipped with payloads to carry precision strikes. Pentagon officials say the designation of the gangs as foreign terrorist organizations could lay the groundwork for direct U.S. strikes against the cartels and their drug labs. Now, Mexico says it is in fact aware of the American drones flying over its airspace, and President Claudia Sheinbaum has confirmed that her office gave the approval for these flights.
These flights are part of a coordinated operation. Here is the Admiral's Secretary. They are collaborations between the U.S. and Mexican governments and have been done for many years and many times that request, or rather, all times it is at the request of the government of Mexico, of collaboration of information in order to address security conditions. First of all, there is nothing illegal. What we have is a collaboration and cooperation that has been going on for many years, not just now.
These drone flights come days after the U.S. Air Force flew multiple manned missions near the Mexico border using spy planes. Meanwhile, security experts are saying that the Trump administration is open to deploying the Marines to Mexico to crack down on the cartels.
Eventually, we may see operations by the U.S. Marines, for example, to capture a kingpin, do drone attacks, or attack a laboratory, if this is possible. I don't like to use this word, but it starts to seem like an extortion. They have the tools to force Mexico to implement certain measures that are of my interest. So technically, I think the designation has many deficiencies, and it's still not clear what exactly they want to use the designation of criminal groups as terrorist organizations for.
Also, many Mexicans are showing support for the Trump administration's stance.
On one hand, it's good what Trump will do. On the other, it's not good that Mexicans allow him to do it. We should address it from home. Another thing is that, if somebody wants to take drugs, it's their life. But we can't let these cartels boss us around us because as Mexicans, they're trampling us and many of us allow them to do so.
Now it remains to be seen just how far the Trump administration is in fact willing to go to fight the drug cartels, and whether that would involve deploying boots on the ground in Mexico, which would be a first since the year 1848 during the Mexican-American War. And staying with Donald Trump, the president believes it is impossible for Tesla to sell cars in India. President Trump said that the EV maker's potential plan to build a factory in India would be unfair to the United States. His remarks came as he sat with Tesla CEO Elon Musk to give a joint interview to Fox News. And President Trump called out India's high tariffs on imported cars, especially electric vehicles. Now, during the interview, the commander-in-chief acknowledged that Musk has the right to set up a Tesla factory in India. However, he did insist that such a move would harm the U.S. in the long run.
Every country in the world takes advantage of us, and they do it with tariffs. It is impossible to sell a car practically. As an example, India. Now, if Musk built the factory in India, that's okay, but that's unfair to us. It's very unfair.
Meanwhile, Musk said that India charges about 100% import duties on electric vehicles. And it's also worth noting that the Tesla CEO has long criticized India's tariffs on cars, which are meant to protect domestic automakers. However, New Delhi has recently introduced new policies for electric vehicles, which reduce the import duty to 15% if a foreign automaker invests at least $500 million and builds a local factory. Musk met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi during his visit to the United States last week. And following the meeting, Tesla posted job advertisements for 13 mid-level roles in India. According to reports, Tesla has already identified locations for its showrooms in New Delhi and Mumbai. And the conversation around Tesla entering the Indian market comes against the backdrop of President Trump's reciprocal tariffs. Just before Prime Minister Modi's visit, Donald Trump announced reciprocal tariffs, and even while meeting the Indian leader, the commander-in-chief deemed India as one of the highest taxing nations.
You've repeatedly called India a big abuser of trade and said it is really difficult to do business in India because of tariffs. You announced reciprocal tariffs today. I am hoping you can speak about what kind of reciprocal tariffs India can expect.
So, frankly, it no longer matters to us that much what they charge, because whatever they charge, I had discussions with India in the first term about the fact that their tariffs were very high, and I was unable to get a concession. So we're just going to do it the easy way, and we're just going to say whatever you charge, we charge. And I think that's fair for the people of the United States, and I think it's actually fair for India.
Now, only time will tell if President Trump's repeated criticisms of India's tariff policies and his push to levy reciprocal tariffs will trigger a broader trade conflict between the two nations, or if India will lower tariffs in order to placate the president. President Donald Trump has always loved grand gestures, but this time he's crowned himself, at least symbolically. In a social media post, he killed New York City's congestion pricing plan and declared himself, quote, the king. Even the White House doubled down, posting an image of the president wearing a golden crown. Critics exploded with warnings of authoritarianism while supporters reveled in the spectacle. How far will the U.S. president take his regal ambitions? Our next report delves deeper into the political storm Trump has just unleashed.
It's been 30 days since Donald Trump returned to the White House. Each day, the U.S. leader has stirred some or the other controversy. From cracking down on illegal immigration to reshaping the federal government, Trump has issued several controversial pardons. And once again, the U.S. president has found himself at the center of a new controversy. This time, it's not policy or scandal, it's his self-proclaimed coronation. On Wednesday, the president thundered across Truth Social, "Congestion pricing is dead. Manhattan and all of New York is saved. Long live the king." The White House, not to be outdone, doubled down. They posted a mock Time magazine cover, Trump grinning beneath a golden crown, the New York skyline at his back. And it's not a surprise that the reaction was instant. Outrage spread like wildfire. Critics saw it as another step towards authoritarianism. However, his supporters saw it as classic Trump. Provocative, defiant, unstoppable.
Are you against or pro for the congestion pricing in New York State?
Against.
So do you think it's a good idea that Trump is actually stopping the congestion pricing in New York?
Yes.
Why?
Because I have to save a little money. Because I got grandkids, I got kids, and I have to retire in a couple of years. So we like to have a little more money in the bank.
Democrats also wasted no time to protest. And New York Governor Kathy Hochul declared that she was ready to fight and even raise money to upgrade aging subway and bus systems.
President Donald Trump tweeted, "Long live the king." I'm here to say New York hasn't labored under a king in over 250 years. And we sure as hell are not going to start now. The streets of this city where battles were fought. We stood up to a king, and we won then. And we will, in case you don't know, New Yorkers, we're in a fight. We do not back down, not now, not ever.
And with that, the battle lines were drawn. New York's Metropolitan Transportation Authority even launched a lawsuit to save the congestion pricing plan.
Feels like the commuters of our city and our region are now the roadkill on Donald Trump's revenge tour against New York. And I have to say this to Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy. It's not the real world, Sean. It's real life for New Yorkers, and don't you forget that. So, we're in fight mode. Within seconds of us getting this notification, our MTA was prepared. We knew this could come. Filed a lawsuit within minutes. I'm very confident we'll be successful. And I also want to say, the cameras are staying on.
Now, the backlash wasn't limited to New York. Democrat Representative Don Beyer of Virginia didn't hold back. We don't have kings in the USA. Across state lines, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker seized his moment during the State of the State address. My oath is to the Constitution. We don't have kings in America, and I won't bend the knee to one. But Trump thrives on spectacle, and his embrace of regal imagery is only growing. After surviving an assassination attempt in Pennsylvania last year, his followers have been hailing him as the chosen one. Trump, too, has been embracing the kingly status. He even leaned into the myth at the National Prayer Breakfast, declaring,
Without God, we are isolated and alone, but with God, the scripture tells us all things are possible. Well, look at me. I'm standing before you today. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here.
The monarchy metaphors keep piling up. Just days ago, Trump posted a spin on a Napoleon quote. He who saves his country does not violate any law. His power grab isn't just symbolic. Trump has already taken action to tighten his grip on Washington. He has signed executive orders asserting control over independent agencies. He has even sought to purge thousands of civil servants.
We hope they come out tonight, frankly.
While his supporters cheer, his critics sound the alarm. The stage is set for a historic showdown. The only question is, who will wear the crown when the dust settles?
And finally, Alice Weidel, the leader of Germany's far-right AfD, has been secretly engaging with Chinese officials. Reports suggest that she met China's former ambassador to Germany once every month for several years, raising concerns about foreign influence. Weidel's deep connections to China, including her years living and working there, fuel the speculation. And with the election around the corner and the AfD gaining ground in national polls, the implications are increasingly serious. Our final report details the murky ties between Alice Weidel and China.
Alice Weidel, leader of Germany's far-right AfD, has a secret. For years, she held off the record meetings with China's ambassador to Germany. These clandestine encounters have raised alarm bells in Europe, raising questions if Weidel is merely curious about China or is she a groomed ally. Investigative reports from German newspaper Bild expose a troubling pattern. Weidel allegedly met Wu Ken, China's former ambassador, once a month. Their meetings took place in a secluded Berlin residence, fortified with fences and guard dogs. And surprisingly, these meetings were also absent from Weidel's official calendar. When confronted, Weidel admitted to the meetings, but downplayed their frequency. She claimed they happened maybe once in 9 months. However, reports suggest Wu met her more often than German foreign ministry officials. Now Weidel's ties to China stretch back decades. She started learning Mandarin at 14. She later lived in China for 6 years, working at the state-owned Bank of China. And her doctoral thesis focused on China's pension system. Weidel's meetings with Wu Ken have also sparked concerns about foreign influence. Weidel has also repeatedly met other far-right allies in Europe. The most recent was Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, who hosted the AfD leader in Budapest. Meanwhile, Russia too has long backed European far-right movements, with Putin himself courting far-right European leaders. But if Weidel has been influenced by Beijing, the implications could be immense. It's no secret that AfD is no stranger to controversy. The party's links to neo-Nazi groups have led to widespread condemnation. Even France's far-right National Rally cut ties with AfD. Accusations of espionage have already plagued the party, and now fresh concerns arise over Weidel's deep Chinese connections.
One thing has now happened. The election campaign is, of course, now being terribly overshadowed by this matter. This means that, unfortunately, people are now talking about China instead of Europe. What matters now is that we refocus the election campaign on European issues and move away from this ultimately very unpleasant matter.
Last year, even though the Chinese government rejected the German espionage reports as hype, all eyes remain on Weidel asking if this was a calculated move.
We would like to emphasize that China has always adhered to the principle of mutual respect and non-interference in each other's internal affairs to cooperate with other countries in the world, including Europe. We also abide by laws and regulations to promote mutually beneficial cooperation with relevant parties. We hope that the relevant personnel of the German side will abandon the Cold War mentality and stop using the so-called espionage risk to engage in anti-China political manipulation.
Weidel is a paradox. She leads an anti-immigrant nationalist party, but has a Sri Lankan-born partner. She speaks fluent Mandarin, yet champions German sovereignty. She presents herself as polished and intellectual, but tolerates extremists in her ranks. Her presence does give AfD a veneer of legitimacy. But who benefits from this image? Are Weidel's policies truly her own? Or is she advancing an agenda crafted elsewhere? One thing is certain, Weidel's story isn't over. But who is writing the next chapter?
That's Firstpost America for this Thursday. I'm Eric Ham, signing off from our studios in Washington, D.C. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.